Hello, this is Bondana Purkeasta, Distinguished Professor of Sociology at the University of Connecticut in the US. I am currently the Vice President for National Associations at the International Sociological Association. It is my intense pleasure to bring you this podcast on sociology in Ghana. I'm joined by two distinguished sociologists. First, you will hear from Professor Steve Tonah, who is Professor of Sociology at the University of Ghana, Legon, Accra. Professor Tonah teaches political and urban sociology and research methods, and his own research interests include migration, ethnicity and race, traditional rule, and pastoralism. Following him, you will hear from Professor William Boateng. He is the national convener of the Ghana Sociological and Anthropological Association and is an associate professor of sociology at the University of Cape Coast in Ghana. His research interests include sociology of health, development, and social planning.
Okay, you want to know the history of sociology in Ghana? Good. The University of Ghana in Legon is a suburb of Accra, was established in 1948. But the Department of Sociology was established in 1950. This means we will be 75 years, I think, next year, which we want to celebrate.
Yes.
Now, the head of the department was Professor K.A. Buzia, who later became the Prime Minister of Ghana. He was an Oxford-trained anthropologist, but decided to come and establish a department of sociology in Ghana. Actually, after his PhD, he decided to come back to Ghana and establish the Department of Sociology. As you can imagine, a lot of the staff at that time were British, mainly from LSE, London, or from Cambridge, and then from Oxford, these three universities. And they were also, let's say, half of them were about anthropologists and sociologists. So although it was a department of sociology, invariably anthropology was dominant in the department during the initial phase of setting up the department. Of course, as I indicated, Professor Buzia himself was also an anthropologist. And then, of course, the initial courses, they did establish a Bachelor of Arts course in sociology in conjunction with the University of London. So the degree that was offered at that time was, of course, offered from a University of London degree, which they were given. So University of Ghana was then attached to the University of London. So that is, and initially, as I explained, the background to this was, of course, that we had from the 1930s, some anthropological, colonial anthropologists who had worked in Ghana. Famous amongst them is Rattray and a few others. And then we also had anthropologists from Cambridge and Oxford, who either came to do research work here in the 40s and 50s, such as Mayor Fortes. And of course, for the British, for them, it was a study of non-Western society. But increasingly, I think during the first decade, particularly following independence in 1957, the curricula had to change, and sociology became increasingly dominant in the teaching courses. So there was a mixture. Sociology became increasingly dominant. So with the main difference was that we were now looking about the nation state, and then the institutions and groups, societies, including ethnic group, clans, but also the nation state, professional groups, and so on. So sociology expanded the focus beyond clans and ethnic group to include professional associations and other more interesting, and of course, development and the challenges of underdevelopment, if you want, or became a central issue. So education became central, health became also a major issue, and then economic development, as usual, or social development became an issue. Industrialization began. So these were then the major sociological themes of the first decade. So that was so I would say until 1962, when the University of Cape Coast was also established. They had I wouldn't say, well, they had a head of department who came from University of Leicester, also in the UK. He was a sociologist. So they started off right with sociological topics and themes. And they also had some Ghanaian and, of course, also foreign lecturers, some of whom had been trained in Europe, but not in the structural functionalist perspective. During the 60s and 70s, of course, the Marxist perspective had then become very dominant in Ghana and many West African countries. So they began to challenge the structural functionalist perspective, which was dominant in the University of Ghana. So the University of Cape Coast later, so it featured prominently. These later on, we had also other perspectives. Here, it was not until probably the 80s that Ghana sociology came under the influence of American sociology. So we do not simply teach individual sociologists, but we look at the perspectives from structural functional to Marxism, to gender sociologists, to another sociological theoretical perspectives. So that is basically, then of course in the third year, they then do a lot more local sociology. They may, particularly social development, sociology of health, or medical sociology, industrial sociology. We also have gender. We have a variety. Sociology of the family, rural sociology, urban sociology, and several several options. Some, of course, are core courses, like the theories, perspectives in sociology. These are core courses. The sociological methods or research methods, sociological research methods are also core courses. Then, of course, we have what we call the electives. You may choose an area of specialization, and that is very broad. That's where we have all of these options, whether you want rural or urban sociology. Some do family, some may do health, some may do industrial, some may do gender sociology, and other perspectives. So that is basically in the final year. Important is we have what we call here a long essay, which involves doing practical research work for a period of 3 months before you graduate. The various departments in Ghana try to make the work practical or try to infuse some practical aspects into the teaching by by taking the students to the field during the course of the program. So that is basically how the sociology in Ghana is organized.
Thank you. Go ahead, and I'm looking forward to your perspective on sociology in Ghana.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so I'm so happy to be talking about Ghana Sociological and Anthropological Association. This is an association that has been there for some time now, but for some reason it became defunct at a point in time, but it has been revived for the past about 8 or so years. And it's just an association of sociologists, anthropologists, and of course social workers belonging to all the universities in Ghana. And now we have quite a good number of professionals in sociology, anthropology, and social work coming together to be members of the Ghana Sociological and Anthropological Association. We deem this association as very important for so many reasons. One is the network among us as professionals. And since we reconstituted or we resuscitated the association, we've been working together. The network has been quite positive. We've been doing some joint collaboration here and there. And we think that it is a good association because of the networking. And on another length, we also deem the association as very important because then we can come together and discuss critical issues affecting the development of our country. And we do that through so many outlets. And now we are even thinking about developing what we call policy briefs that we're going to share with the policy makers out there. But what we do actually is that we almost always have an annual conference as an association. We've done that for the past about 8 or so years. Just about 2 weeks ago, we had one at one of our universities, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and it was good. And at these conferences, we select very topical themes that we think are very important. For instance, this year, the one we did, the theme was on sustainable development goals. And the rationale for selecting that theme was that we want to see where we are as a country with regards to what we're doing to attain the sustainable development goals. In any case, we are just about 4 or 5 years away to 2030. And for that matter, it's about time we try to find out what are we doing as a country in the various areas, the various social institutions in the area of health, education, politics, economy, and all that, just to see what we are doing. And we receive a lot of good papers out there. And the outcome of the conference we shared with the media, policymakers, and that we are convinced that some action would emanate from the recommendation that we came up with at KNUST. So we keeping our politicians, our policymakers, we keeping them informed with regards to what we do as sociologists, anthropologists, and social workers. In any case, as researchers, we can research scientifically and recommend ways of making the society better. But we are in league with the policymakers, the technocrats, just to ensure that our research will not just be on our campuses, but then the results will have to be shared to inform action out there. So that is one. And also, we are now thinking seriously about developing a compendium where all of us as professionals, we're going to compile our publications and that we're going to share with the policymakers, with the technocrats out there, because after all, we are in a scientific age, evidence-based age, and for that matter, if we share the compendium with them and they need some relevant information, they may fall on that and utilize the materials that we have scientifically developed. Then on top of that, we want to come up with an annotation so that it won't just be a mere compendium, which will just be an outline of what we have done, but we'll go a step beyond that by annotating the salient thing that we have done so that any policymaker out there or a technocrat out there can just have a look at that, and within just a few seconds, we'll be able to glean something salient sociologically, anthropologically, from our work, just to inform action out there. And we are also in the process of engaging the media. We want to have a periodic engagement with the media, and the reason is that, this day and age, we are in an era of social media, and through them, we can have our findings known out there so that will inform policy decisions for the good of our society. But the website also is something that we want to develop. There is a team presently working on the website development because some people may want to see what we do as an association made up of sociologists, anthropologists, and social workers. So that if we have a good website running, then our work can be exhibited out there, our plans can be made known out there. Then we're thinking of having even a section on the website that we can have an interactive section where somebody may read something from our website, they may have some question for us. The person can post the question there. So we want to develop a website that we're going to engage with the general public and, of course, policymakers out there as well. But we also have our journal running. The Ghana Sociological and Anthropological Association has a journal running. The journal has been there for about over 6 years. We have a very strong editorial board. The journal is doing very well. And for that matter, that is also another outlet that we use to share our findings with the general public with a view that it will inform action out there. But we have a bit of some challenges as an association. One major challenge that we have has to do with coming together to do research as an association. Individual members are doing their research in their respective ways. But we think that as an association, we should also be coming together through networking, work on some joint proposals together, then seek for some funding out there, competitive funding out there. And that we think is the next thing that we are going to do. Actually, we're going to have a meeting next week. And that is one of the major things that we're going to talk about. That individuals can do their research, but as an association also, we can come together, pick some topical themes, develop proposals in them, and see whether we can have some support and work on those research, which are very important for the development of our country. Though we'll be looking for external funding, but the challenge I think we have is that it's an infant association. We don't have enough funds. Other than that, it will be very good that we prioritize topics or problems that we think are very important we deal with as a country. Then we can assign some specific groups of individuals to work on them. So that is one step that we plan taking. And the other plan is also to be writing proposals out there to compete and see whether we can have some funding to do some viable research to change our society. Our major interest is, of course, on Ghana, but as sociologists, we need to look at humanity in general. So we'll be looking for some external support to do some research, but also we are interested also in doing research that we think will have a direct impact on the development of our economy. So these are some of the things that we have on board, and the fact that we have also been accepted as a member of the International Sociological Association is a positive thing to us. It's a plus. Now, so many other professional associations are very happy with us. We now have an enhanced esteem stemming from the fact that we now belong to a revered body like the International Sociological Association. So that is also one of the key achievements that we think we have been able to chalk as an association. And so far, our collaboration with the International Sociological Association, courtesy Vice President Banana, has been wonderful. And we're looking forward to strengthening the collaboration that we have already, so that our association will grow from strength to strength, so that the International Sociological Association also will grow from strength to strength. Thank you very much.
This concludes the current session of the series Sociology in Different Countries and Regions of the World, inspired by the work being done by the International Sociological Association. Since we are all trying to get beyond a few dominant strands of Western scholarship on our discipline, I hope this session will encourage you to find out more about scholars and scholarship in other parts of the regions and countries in the world, because together we make up the diversity of global scholarship. Signing off, this is Bondana Purkeyastha, Vice President, ISA.